This video is sponsored by Warhammer 40,000 Battlesector.
Hello and welcome to Broadsword Wargaming. My name is Oliver, and yes, in this video I'm going to be making the largest tower I've ever made for Warhammer 40,000, and I'm going to be building it on a beautiful board and showing you the entire process from start to finish.
Here I have a bit of everything for you: water effects, rocks, a classic crashed spaceship, and a 3-foot building with inbuilt LED lights. First up, we need a board. For this, I always use 5mm plywood with 2x1 wooden battens screwed in around the edges. This is my go-to way of making boards, as it is lightweight, sturdy, and relatively cheap. I filled the gap with 24mm polystyrene, allowing me to cut into the board when crafting. To kick things off, we need a building. Warhammer 40,000 Battlesector is releasing a Tau DLC for their game, so it seemed only right to use a huge Tau tower. Now, I'm no good at crafting something of this scale, so I went to my handy 3D printer. This is the Creality CR10 SE, sent over to me by the fine folks at Creality. It's the first time I've used it, and honestly, it was really easy to set up. I just found some files, uploaded them to the computer, and voila, I have my Tau building after about 6 days of printing. The first thing you want to do is plan your board. This isn't something I typically spend hours on, as I find things naturally happen along the way. That said, you do want a rough idea of where things are going to go. I know I want the tower to be visually imposing, so it probably wants to be on the top of a hill or a rocky outcrop. To add height and variation, I just use cheap polystyrene, the same stuff I stuck into the board. You can use more expensive foam, which allows you to carve directly into it and will hold detail, but I'm going to cover all of this anyway, so you'll see that later on. Grab some PVA, cut some foam to size, and stick it down. If you want to add a little support, you can always push cocktail sticks into the foam. As I'm adding 2 pieces of foam together to make an even bigger hill, I do like to add the supports this way. It really isn't necessary, but it does help to keep the edges in line when you're working later. Grab a blade, a saw, or a wire foam cutter, something I'm yet to use, and get carving. Think about where you want models to stand, what areas you want as rock faces, and if there's enough space to place your buildings. Do note this is a really messy process, as you end up with little balls of polystyrene absolutely everywhere, so do have a hoover nearby. Just to make things even messier, I like to rub my rock faces. Yes, rub them until all of the loose bits come away. This will make the next process so much easier, as you won't be dealing with bits falling off. I made a large hole, as I decided I wanted a little desert pond, and I also made space for the downed spaceship. Next, we're going to need something to make realistic rock faces. Cork is definitely an option if you can find large enough pieces, but I just love rock molds. I use Geek Gaming casting plaster, available from my store, add water and drop it into the molds. A little tip to make the plaster settle well is to give the molds a little spray with water first. Leave it for half an hour or so, and then they can just pop right out. The thinner you make the plaster, the longer it will take to dry. With loads of pieces done, it is on to the messy but fun part of the build. I genuinely love this product, and it is integral to all of my board builds. Modelling Compound by Geek Gaming is just so good. Much like casting plaster, you mix it with water until it is the consistency of egg mayonnaise. Slap this on wherever you want to stick a rock face and you're pretty much done, just fill in the spaces. When it dries in 20 to 30 minutes, you can carry on working. No more waiting 2 days for some PVA to dry. I use this to smooth out all of the slopes, attach rocks, and to protect and toughen the polystyrene. It does dry hard as nails, so it means your terrain has plenty of strength to deal with gaming. With that done, we have the core ground forms of this board finished. Some nice rocky areas, a smooth hillside that models are able to stand on, and I added a second, smaller outcrop on the far side of the board just to add some balance to the look of this piece. While all of that sets, let's take a minute to chat about this video's wonderful sponsor. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. Experience the brutal conflict of Warhammer 40,000 like never before with Warhammer 40,000 Battlesector. Pick your force, develop your army, field mighty heroes, and fight for victory using superior strategy, awesome abilities, and devastating weaponry. Warhammer 40,000 Battlesector offers a diverse range of gameplay options. Engage in gripping narrative campaigns as the Blood Angels clash with the Tyranids, or test your strategic prowess in the dynamic Planetary Supremacy campaign, or the relentless Demonic Incursions survival mode available with any faction. Expand your experience with DLC factions including Orcs, Demons of Khorne, Sisters of Battle, and the latest edition, the technologically advanced Tau. Why not head to the link in the description and check it out for yourselves. Prepare for war and lead your chosen faction to victory in Warhammer 40,000 Battlesector. Available now on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. Right, let's get back to the video. It's time to add some colour and texture to really bring this board to life. When it comes to painting, I swear by spray cans for their convenience and ease of application. Thanks to the protective layer of modelling compound on the foam, there's no risk of it melting under the paint. Starting with a base of browns and yellows, I aim to give the board a rugged, natural look. This not only adds depth to the terrain, but also serves as a backup plan in case any ground cover comes loose. There's a nice cohesive base colour to fall back on. Before fixing the terrain elements, it's probably best to paint them first. Enter an old crashed ship I've had lying around for about 20 years. I think it's high time it found a purpose. Since my partner Kira has been painting up some flesh terrors, it seems fitting to match the ship to that scheme. Using a mixture of modelling compound, I integrate the ship into the board's surface before giving it a spray. While some foam around the ship melts slightly from the spray, I actually like this effect, as it adds to that rugged, rocky aesthetic I'm going for. Besides, any imperfections can always be covered up later. Now, it's on to the fun part, applying the ground cover. With a generous coat of PVA glue spread across the board, I start layering sand and rocks to create texture and visual interest. Opting for a combination of Geek Gaming Desert Sand and Stone Base Ready and Tropical Beach Base Ready, I strategically place larger rocks against the terrain features and fill in the gaps with finer sand. You really don't have to be careful. I quite literally throw this at the board. It gives it a nice natural feel. Feeling a little more adventurous, I even throw in some traditional play sand for a pop of orange, adding to that Wasteland vibe I'm going at. In the end, it's all about variety and spontaneity. Nature isn't uniform, so neither should your terrain be. I hit it with some matte scenic sealant to help hold it all in place, then applied loads of tufts in patches around the whole board. They helped to add some colour and more interest to the whole piece. I was unsure what kind of green to go with, but settled with this subdued brownish green in the end. I was tempted by a bright Mediterranean green, but the orange hue changed the feel of the board for me. Painting in a few more details on the ship, I then applied a ton of dry pigment. This stuff is brilliant and I'm beginning to use it more often. I haven't experimented with wet pigments yet, but I'd quite like to. The kind of effect and finish and the way this ties the piece together is just so good. I recommend this to everybody. Try pigments, they really will up your painting game. Using the AK Interactive Still Water, I just wanted to try this and see how good it actually is at making ponds. I've tried it before on a previous build, but it was only really to moisten the ground. This time, applying it in relatively thin layers, it's just straight out of the tube kind of product. Let it dry in between, then apply more. Simple to use and you can't really mess it up.
Alright, so this next bit is something I will admit that I'm probably going to be utterly useless at. I am no good at tools, technology, wiring, cables. I don't even really understand how the internet works. So if you're having any doubts as to whether or not you can do LED parts in your buildings or your models, stay tuned for this little bit because if I can, so can you.
Recently, I had the pleasure of spending a few hours with David from Terraintronics. Armed with a box of electrical components and a crash course in lighting, I set off to try and illuminate my tabletop creations. First thing, let's talk about power. LEDs, the stars of our show, need power. The easiest way, connect them to a coin battery. Simple enough. But to make these usable with our models and terrain, I opt for wiring. Enter the Terraintronics Conway Castle Driver. A nifty little board that lets us power LEDs via USB and even has brightness control. For my power source, I went with a portable charging battery, readily available, cheap and versatile. While a coin battery would suffice, I didn't actually have any to hand, so this was the next best thing, and in fact, slightly more advanced. With the battery plugged into the Conway board, we have light, effortlessly and without the need for any actual electronical skills. Now, it's on to the fun part, installation. Visualizing where I wanted the lights to be was the easy bit. Utilizing spray cans and a touch of white paint, I prepped my tower terrain. The mast tips and the antennas were prime spots for some lighting. The base section of the roof came apart, so I had the perfect spot to hide all the wire and gubbins. Unfortunately, the cables I'd just shown you were too thick and not long enough. This is where I used wire wrap. It's essentially the same stuff as the cables, just smaller and thinner. So armed with a wire wrap tool, you literally wrap the wire around the pointy bits, and in just 5 minutes the transformation was complete and I had integrated light into the terrain. While there are undoubtedly more comprehensive guides out there, my experience proves that with the right tools and a bit of experimentation, anyone can elevate their terrain game with lights. After all, if I can do it, so can you. It's just all about taking that first step and giving it a go. I placed the tower building onto the board, and that is it. Board complete. A few tower models, some flesh tearers, and the scene is set. The battle is ready and the forces are fighting. What do you think to this video? What do you think to the board build, and how do you feel about LED lighting? Personally, it's something I want to try again, and I want to try more complex things. There, I'm sure, a whole host of cool stuff you could do with these, so I'm certainly going to keep on trying. As always, learning and trying new things is how we improve and how we get better. And I honestly feel like I have improved and I have learned something new. And I hope you guys can take something away from the video too. If you enjoyed this video, please do make sure to hit like, share and subscribe to this channel to get notice of upcoming videos. If you want to support the channel, check all the links down below in the description. There are links there to my Patreon, to my store where you can buy a lot of these products, including models from if you're based in the EU. And of course, thank you so much to our beautiful sponsors, Warhammer 40,000, Battlesector. Make sure to click that link, check them out, see what the game's like and give it a go. I'm going to leave you there. Thank you for everything, take care, and I'll catch you in the next video.